Hey, what is up guys? So today we are revisiting the Ghost S1, and what I'm going to do today is I'm going to transplant my Encase M1 build, which I only built quite recently actually. We're going to put it in the Ghost S1 and I'm going to try and milk as much airflow as I can out of this thing with the medium top hat. So one thing I love about the Ghost S1 is that if you are after more storage or if you're after water cooling support, these top hats are pretty convenient add-ons as opposed to being forced to upgrade to a larger case. So previously on the channel we've looked at the stock configuration, which is this one here, and we've also looked at the large top hat, which allows you to add water cooling support to the case. Both of those performed quite well, but today's focus really is on high airflow, mainly concerned for the GPU. If you guys have watched some of my recent content, you'll know that I recently rebuilt this Encase M1 over here, and with the 2080 Ti, thermals and noise levels were actually pretty disappointing. I was forced to undervolt the 2080 Ti just to keep things under control, and the build is completely functional and usable now. I use it for gaming, use it for editing, and it's quite good, but I really want to see how the Ghost S1 fares in comparison, especially with that medium top hat. So what better way to compare than to actually transplant my entire system over to the Ghost? For those of you who are new to the channel or just unfamiliar with this case, I've done a fair bit of content on this one, including my full review, which you can check out in the top right hand corner. In summary, it's the most premium case that I've ever reviewed when it comes to build quality, the Streetcom DA2 being a close second, as the Ghost is built from extruded and milled aluminium. In the stock configuration, the case measures just 8.2 liters in volume, that goes up to 9.2 liters in volume with the small top hat, 9.6 with the medium, and 11 liters flat when using the large top hat. As we've seen previously, these add-ons can be mounted at the top or the bottom, although you will lose the 2.5-inch drive bracket position if you do choose to install it at the bottom. The medium top hat that I'm using for this build can technically accommodate up to two 3.5-inch drives, although routing for the SATA connectors is going to be a bit tricky. How most of you will likely be using these top hats though is with additional fans. In my case, that's with two 120mm fans in exhaust. The thermal design of the Ghost S1 is to take air in through the side panels, cooling both the CPU and GPU compartments independently, and then that hot air is then exhausted passively out of the top and the bottom of the case. I'm hoping that running the exhaust top hat can help accelerate that chimney effect and also help draw in air through the side panels. I also wanted to experiment with the bottom 120mm fan slot right underneath the power supply. To do this, you will actually need to position the power supply up a notch to give your cables enough clearance, but this is a pretty easy switch. Keep in mind that fan will actually take up the slot for the 2.5-inch drives, but there is another slot behind the power supply that you can use instead, and I found that I could still use this along with some custom cables. So I did a bit of testing with this bottom mounted fan, and GPU temperatures actually got worse. So without the fan in there, we're talking just a stock Ghost S1 with no fans, the GPU settles in at a very warm 85 degrees C, and that's with the temperature limit set to 88. Now with the bottom fan in there set to intake, and that's pulling air through the bottom and up into the case, we are basically hitting that limit. The reason for this is that since it's pulling air into the case, it's directly fighting the exhaust air from the GPU, which if you remember, it exhausts hot air out of each side of the card, near the logo and also near the PCIe slot. The result is that you get hot air being pushed back up into the case and then recirculating over and over. Flipping the fan to exhaust isn't going to work unless you have a fan grill that you can fit through that tiny square, but you do have enough room for a slim 120mm fan like Noctua's NFA 12x15. So running this as exhaust does actually help GPU temps by a few degrees, and this was with the fan spinning at 1500 RPM. With our 2080 Ti undervolted using only 850 millivolts at load instead of 1000 millivolts plus, we see that drop now down to about 75 degrees C. As a reference, the coolest I could get this card to run in the Encase M1 with the same undervolt settings was 73 degrees C, and that was with the same ambient temp of 21. The Encase was running 5 fans though, whereas the Ghost here is only running 1. Now for the top hat, and I will mention that previously the Ghost had an issue where the top hat sides would bow inwards, so they wouldn't line up with the side panels and they would leave a sort of nasty visible gap. The silver Ghost S1 that I've I've got here is a batch 3 model that they've sent over, and that bowing effect seems to be completely gone, at least with this unit and this top hat. Thankfully now there's no bowing here at all, as you can see, and this was with all of the screws completely tightened. I'll also mention that after reviewing both the black and the silver model, I would recommend going with silver. Of course, this is personal preference. I do think silver looks better, but more importantly, if you do get any scratches or scuffs on the case while building, they won't show up anywhere near as easily as they do on the black one. So when the top hat is added and the fans are running in exhaust, the result is a kind of vacuum effect where the hot air is being exhausted through the top and the bottom, creating a negative pressure system, and then fresh air is pulled through the side panels to balance it out. If you are running an air-cooled Ghost S1, this is how I'd recommend running it, not the vertical airflow direction that is otherwise pretty common. Yes, I know heat rises, but this is only relevant in a passive way. Even a fan running at its lowest speed is enough to cancel that rule out. So again, top exhaust, bottom exhaust creates negative pressure. Air is then forced to be pulled through the side panels to balance it out. So in terms of GPU temperatures, I measured a further 3-degree drop with the fans running at 1500 RPM, allowing the 2080 Ti to now run happily and quietly at 72. Without the 2080 Ti running with the undervolt, this setup is still doable. Temps are now leveling out at 80 degrees C, so we're seeing about an 8-degree drop here with the undervolt in place. So for the GPU, the medium top hat gives us about a 3-degree drop, but for the CPU, which is our 8700K, we're seeing over an 8-degree drop from stock. Here we're seeing that chimney effect with the airflow style really paying off, even more so for the CPU. So with the Ghost S1 in its stock configuration without any fans added in, a 2080 Ti Founders Edition will throttle at an ambient room temp of 20 degrees C or higher. By adding in a slim 120mm exhaust fan at the bottom of the case, thermals on an open air GPU can be improved, and adding in a medium top hat can reduce thermals even further. Definitely recommended for higher TDP GPUs like the 2080 Ti. And finally, with an undervolt, I did get the 2080 Ti thermals in check, although they are pretty much the same as what we achieved with the Ncase M1. The only difference here is that we are running 3 fans instead of 5, so in summary, the Ghost is as good as the Ncase M1 in terms of GPU thermals, but requires less fans, which means less noise. So this concludes my small form factor cooling adventures with the 2080 Ti Founders Edition. The final conclusion here is basically to spend about 30 minutes or so dialing in an undervolt for the card. Remember that this card runs at 75 degrees C on an open test bench, and that's not really a lot of thermal headroom if you think about it. And as I said in one of my recent videos, I am planning on doing a custom loop in the Ncase M1, but after building up this Ghost S1 build, I am actually considering doing it in this instead with the large top hat. Let me know which one you guys would prefer down in the comment section below. As I said, it will be after Computex, so perhaps we can actually get a few more hardware upgrades to the system as well. As always guys, a huge thanks for watching. Consider subscribing down below if you haven't already, and I'll see you all in the next one.